Being a kid, I didn't know really anybody that had one. I had an Atari. You occasionally would find the kid that had an Intellivision or whatnot. I didn't have any friends that did, but looking at the, kind of the TV commercials, it always looked way cooler. Going back now and looking at it as I've gotten older and being able to find out more about it. So, the Atari came out in 77. Intellivision came out in 79. So it was newer, but it's not like it was super newer. But when you look at the stuff that it could do, it looked like it was just generations and generations ahead of the Atari. So kind of the way they first started pitching it against the Atari was on their sports games. You look at the Atari sports games, football, basketball, soccer, what have you, against their Intellivision equivalents, and the Intellivision ones easily look like they're 10 years newer. I mean, the Atari stuff all just looks like, stick figures, rectangles, just blobs. The Intellivision stuff actually looks like real sports. And they were much, much more complex to play. I mean, the football game, you had to actually program plays and everything in. It was a much more advanced system. They also kind of became known for role-playing type games. So, in the Atari, you had adventure, and I guess to a lesser degree, haunted house. Good games, fun, great if you have a good imagination, but the graphics are basically squares. The Intellivision stuff, first off, they had an official Dungeons and Dragons license. So they put out 2 Dungeons and Dragons actually licensed games. The one of them's kind of rare and weird, but the main one had actual randomly generated dungeons that would kind of fill themselves in as you traversed the maze. Different creatures and whatnot you would have to kill, different things you would have to look for. They had a map screen with different places you could go on it. It's just a much, much more advanced system. Combine that where they had, they had arcade shooters and whatnot, just like the Atari did, but they had B-17 Bomber, for example, which was one of their, I guess you'd almost call it an early flight simulator. It talked.
Mattel Electronics presents B-17 Bomber.
Yeah, I mean, there was a module you could get that would make it talk. There was a map screen. You had different views out of different sections of the aircraft that you could do. Stuff that the Atari couldn't even touch. So, and then, I guess lastly, you come to sort of their arcade ports. Well, some of them, like were, obviously the infamous Atari Pac-Man version, where it was kind of rushed out, the Pac-Man flickers, and he doesn't change, the angle of his mouth as he moves and whatnot. Whereas you look at the Intellivision one, it looks very close to the arcade version. Burger Time, another very popular arcade game. Same thing. The Atari version is really very blobby, very blocky. Just doesn't look very nice. The Intellivision one looked pretty much arcade. It wasn't arcade perfect, but it was close. Kind of the downside was they had these weirdo controllers with a disc and these, and a big keypad and these deeply embedded buttons that just weren't comfortable to push and hold for long periods of time. Combat versus Armor Ambush, that's another one. It's a tank game. You're in a tank, your friend's in a tank, and you try to hunt each other down and shoot the other one. The one literally looks like, a couple of squares with a longer square sticking out to represent a barrel versus the other one that actually looks like tanks. And there's different terrain. There's swamps and bushes and crap you gotta go through. Just, like I said, graphically, yeah, it was 2 years newer, but it looked 10. I guess for lack of a better term, the Atari games probably played smoother, but the Intellivision games were much more in depth and definitely looked better.
So make the best of this test and don't ask why. It's not a question but a lesson learned in time. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life.